My life changed a lot, friends, family, whatnot, when I came into care, and it took a while to kind of get back to a normal, to find the normal, I guess, because being in care, the system is full and it's hard to find places for kids all the time, and you kind of get moved around a lot, which is hard, especially when you're young. I was young, but I was still a lot older than some of the kids who had to go through it.
That's Charlie Brown's Christmas tree. That tree has stayed in that shape for probably 10 years. It hasn't grown or moved, honestly. Can you imagine what this looked like in the 1800s?
We estimate we've seen between 90,000 and 95,000 children go through our doors. Currently, we see about 2,000 kids a year in various programs that we offer. And Marymound has grown to an agency of, when it was only nuns, to in the 60s when lay people started, we now have about 350 to 400 full-time employees working all over the province in various programs. So in 1911, when the sisters took ownership of the property, they moved into this house, what we call the E.P. Leacock Estate, or the home of the Good Shepherds. They came to Manitoba at the request of Thomas Daly, who was the Chief Justice of the Juvenile Court, who reached out to the church to help work with young women who ran afoul of the law but weren't necessarily, he didn't feel that these were criminal issues. He felt that these were more social issues. So the only people that were providing any sort of service back then was the church. So he reached out to Archbishop Langevin, who then knew of the Sisters of the Good Shepherd, who were working in Montreal with marginalized women and children. So 5 sisters came out. They started working in Manitoba in 1911 on William Avenue. In April of that year, they quickly outgrew that space and took this property over in September of 1911.
CFS stands for Child and Family Services. It is what's known as a statutory service, so it's based in law. There would be a Child and Family Services Act, and that law would give agencies the ability to work with families, to try and keep kids in families, and also agencies would have the ability to bring kids into care if they felt they were unsafe. And once they're in care, the system would try and reunify them with families. While they do that, the kids need placement. And sometimes kids can't go back to family, so they're in longer term placement. And that's where Marymound really plays a role.
Girls CSU. Oh, okay. Okay, thanks. Bye. We're on fire watch. A youth care worker does almost everything. There's a lot of different roles that they do, you know, from cooking meals, providing basic care, and providing an ear to listen when the kids need to talk. For me, working with the kids is a lot of fun. You know, there's 2 ends of the spectrum. There's really, really good and fun and happy, and then there's, you know, the other end. So for me, it's just being prepared for anything.
I came into care when I was about 11 years old. I had been in and out of CSU a couple times, which is in the Marymound main building. I was bounced from multiple different places. I was in 4 group homes, 2 foster homes, and 2 shelters before I got put on Marymound. First time I lived up there, it was more of a, locked unit. It was a facility that took care of, I guess not really. I didn't see it as took care of. I saw it as just a facility that locked up girls. Whether it be for their own fault or keeping them safe from something else. But that's what I saw it as. The second time around, I did end up seeing it as a home because that was all I had for quite a while.
Life on a unit is very structured. Sometimes there's just not enough time to get everything done. You know, if you've got 5 or 6 girls living on a unit long-term together, they all have wants, they all have needs, and, you know, there's not always enough staff, and that's a sad reality of it.
Currently, there are challenges in the child welfare system in Manitoba. Certainly the number of kids in care is a concern. I believe we're looking at between 11 and 12,000 kids in care, which is the highest of any province in the country. Certainly with the amount of kids in care, it's quite difficult to make sure that all those needs of those kids are met. Staff retention and recruitment is also a challenge. We're working with some of the highest needs kids in the system, yet the staff aren't being compensated appropriately, or even close to being appropriate for the work that they do.
The nature of like the job, like the youth care worker job, is they will leave. And that's always been hard for me to handle because I didn't have anybody that really stuck around, whether it be at my account or theirs. I just didn't really have anybody stay for very long. So the idea that they wouldn't was really, really hard for me. And I had gone through that multiple times.
You know, you get invested in these kids, and sometimes we'll see the same kids come back over, you know, they'll come back a month later or a couple months later, and you get kind of excited to see them again, but you also get kind of sad to see them again because you know that they're going through a hard time and that's why they're here. But you get to build that relationship with them, and that can be a tough thing to do too because, you know, you gotta say bye to them again in 3 to 5 days, and you don't know what they're gonna be going off and doing, and you don't know how things are gonna go, and you care. And that can be tough.
I'm not a job to everybody that's stuck around, which is nice, I guess, to think that, hey, I'm important enough to someone that I became more than a job to them. I am now a friend. Because there are people who are going to come and go, but the key word there is they're going to come, right? They're going to be part of my life. I definitely would say that I've gone a lot further now that I'm on my own. The idea that they wanted to do all of this for me kind of got it into my head that I could be something more than I was then. Self-harm was a pretty regular thing for me, and I don't do it anymore because thanks to like this condo and all the freedom now and that they've helped me with, I realized I don't have to do that anymore. Plus I can have a cat here, which is always a bonus. Because when you've had a cat since you're 5 years old, it's nice to be able to live with her again. Scooby-Doo! Rude.
I don't even think I knew anybody in CFS when I was growing up. And I mean, in education, that's one of the areas that's not really touched upon. You don't hear a lot about children in care or how to deal with at-risk youth when you're working towards your degree in education. And it doesn't matter how much you read in the books and how much people tell you until you're in here and actually seeing it all firsthand and seeing all the kids interacting with all of their different circumstances. I mean, that's when you really get the experience to know how to handle things.
The school serves kids who have trouble functioning in the public school system. So Marymound will work with them, and it's our intent to work with them for a year or two and return them to the public school system.
All right, so this is the senior year's classroom. So typically we have the kids they might be a couple grade 10s, 11s, and anyone who may be working on the grade 12 level. We don't typically graduate from Marymound, so it's more prepping them to maybe go and do their mature diploma and things like that. It makes for a hard environment when you're all working at so many different levels and trying to get them a credit when, I mean, unfortunately, especially the seniors, they could miss a lot of school. They may end up in a youth center or living arrangements may change. I got a lot of awards the first year that I was there. So that was nice. It made me feel glad, I guess, to be at school because I was recognized for something. That eventually started to fall apart as I had moved to the group home and then back up to Euphrasia Hall. I stopped caring. So this is one of the kids' favorite places to be. It's our foods class. So at the beginning of the year, our foods teacher will take basically a list of all the kids for what their favorite foods are, what they would like to learn how to cook, and try to give them some skills that maybe they're not going to get to learn at home because, you know, they're not in that opportunity with their families, or they're moving from shelter to shelter depending on the situation. So it's great that they can come in here and just learn things that you know, a lot of people do learn with their families.
Eventually, though, with youth care workers and my clinicians and whatnot, I finally realized that I've got more after this. I do have a life, like, ahead of me. And so they kind of showed me that, and I got back in school.
We don't work semester by semester like the public school does. The kids come and go. I mean, we have kids that could leave and be locked up for 2 months. They come back, they get out their math book, and away they go. We have to operate much differently, but the kids are still doing Manitoba curriculum. They're still working towards their credits. Our first focus may not be that they go up 3 reading levels and stuff. We would love it if they do, and we really encourage the education part. But our first part is that they come in and they feel safe and they want to be here, that school feels good again.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. Come on a little closer, even if you would like. Come on down. Our megaphone is on the way right now, so in the time being, we might just have to listen to each other.
The North End, as Winnipeg was beginning, was primarily European, Jewish, Ukrainian immigrants, new to this country, working class, in poverty. Okay. Marymound, 105 years ago when they began, the makeup of the children that they served was pretty much the North End. The makeup was identical.
When the sisters left in 2014, we went through a process of separating out what was Good Shepherd material and what was Marymound material. The one document that we did keep here is our admission ledger, which we used for 100 years. We have every kid who lived with us from 1911 until 2011. When you turn to the early days, 1911, 12, 13, all the way up until the late 40s and 50s, Marymound was working predominantly with Eastern European immigrant children. We didn't see a turnover to predominantly Indigenous and Métis children until the 50s and 60s, where now we're working with 75-80% Indigenous Métis children.
Like many children in Manitoba, I was put into the child welfare system when I was born. In Manitoba, we have close to 90% of the children that are in child welfare are First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. And I live in the R2W postal code in the North End of Winnipeg, where 1 in 6 of our children are in the care of CFS. Why are so many children in one postal code where there happen to be a lot of Indigenous people being so overrepresented? That is a problem. And for me, as a product of the child welfare system, I have a responsibility to those little ones to speak up on their behalf. Marymound's relationship with the Indigenous community in Winnipeg, at least, I would describe as tense. Large organizations like governments, child welfare specifically, have history with Indigenous communities, and it is not a good one.
A lot of people today will state that CFS is the new former residential school. And so a lot of our youth are still feeling the effects of that, a lot of our family systems, which is why a lot of them are so complex and broken today to this day. And so it's very important for our youth to reclaim who they are, to regain the consciousness of their identity, because it'll help them steer towards positive influences rather than going to the negative.
People are quick to say that the challenges that the Indigenous children and families are facing are complex, and it's too hard, and it's somebody else's problem. But it's not. It's not somebody else's problem, and it's not even that hard either. Because the same things that you needed to grow into a healthy human being are the same thing that Indigenous kids need. They need to feel like they belong, and they need to feel valued. They need to feel like they have opportunities in their life to be something greater than what they see around them.
We started a cultural program here about 14 years ago at Marymound. We currently have 2 Indigenous youth mentors and a cultural coordinator. We bring elders on site, we have sweat lodge ceremonies, we grow our own tobacco for ceremonies, we have full moon ceremonies for our girls. So we've also moved forward in implementing some policies to be more culturally proficient. So our staff teams are more reflective of who we're working with.
Cultural sensitivity is something that we talk about a lot, but it's not enough to be sensitive. Cultural proficiency means you have a respect for another's culture and you have respect for your own culture, and those cultures can coexist side by side without one overbearing the other or one harming the other.
When I started here 28 years ago, a lot of the kids were not proud of their heritage. They were not proud to be Native, they'd call it, or Indians, they'd call it. But that's changed a lot in the 28 years I've been here. And lately, a large focus has been on the Indigenous community, and rightfully so. We want our kids to be proud of their heritage. And the majority of our kids are Indigenous, so we want to instill that pride in them. It's a challenge on how we deliver that message to them. That's always been a challenge. Marymound's always strive to do a good job of doing that.
It's important for the kids to understand their traditions, their way of life, to understand that there is a community out there that does care for them, and it goes beyond these walls. They say it takes the community to raise a child, and the culture is all about unity, working together, being one with the land, learning from the land, but also learning from each other. I think people just have to educate themselves on it a little bit more. I don't think it's something, well, when I was in school, wasn't something I learned about. There was no Indigenous studies. There was nothing like that. We learned about Canadian history, but not about Indigenous history. And I think that's an important piece to that too. So by implementing it while they're young, just so there isn't a sense of ignorance, and they can speak from a place of knowledge, I think that would help everybody have a better understanding about where we're coming from.
We know what our children deserve, and we will not stop until they have it. So I'm excited because when I look on the streets of the North End, I feel like I see Marymound's future, and it's bright.
How are you doing? Good. How about you? Good. I love your hair. Thank you.
Hey, Emily.
How's it going?
How are you? Nice to see you, my dear. Oh, I love the green hair.
Thank you.
As a business in the Winnipeg community, we've done a lot of philanthropy pieces for different organizations. So I thought, because the work at Marymound is, done with kids, I thought maybe there's somebody special at Marymound that could come forward with some creative ideas and sort of collaborate with us on some kind of a message that the piece could carry. And so we got involved with Emily. A month later, she came back with some ideas and some sketches that kind of blew me away.
This being something that I've had to deal with my entire life, the idea that it's chemical makes it easier to acknowledge and realize that there's nothing wrong with the person. It's just something gone wrong in their brain. Just one chemical could be off balance, and it's not something to look down on somebody for. And I know that that's a feeling that I've had to go through more than once. And so to take that feeling away from someone else is nice. When you wear this necklace, I hope it can brighten up your day even just a bit, maybe even adding a bit of dopamine to your brain. That is why I wanted to make it, basically, is because I want whoever's wearing it to feel better. Because this necklace is not an everyday necklace. It's something that you can look at and it's either pretty and someone might tell you that, or someone's gonna be curious as to what it means, and that's a conversation starter. And so that conversation being made can brighten up someone's day very easily. And I like that.
So the province approached us in 2014 to develop a program that works with young women with complex needs and mental health issues. We've had some great support from the community, and we're probably halfway to our goal. We're starting to do work on this house, and it's going to house the I Am program, which will be a transition program for up to 10 young women with complex needs and mental health issues.
You know, this is going to still be a house, even though there's going to be kids living here receiving treatment and support. It's still going to be a home. It will be their home for up to 18 months, possibly 2 years. So we will make it as comfortable as possible for them and for the staff that have to work here. So our goal here is to keep it warm and comforting like it was when the sisters lived here. We're just going to update it. Children that aren't able to live with their families, we need to provide as close a living environment as possible. Every child deserves a home, and that's what we're building here in this capital campaign and in this renovation.
One of the things that it's important to remember that even if children and youth are with us 3 days or 3 years, they're leaving us eventually. And when they do, we want them to leave us with a sense of identity and a community that will embrace them.
I wish people would see that Marymound isn't a punishment place. Marymound is not meant to lock girls away who can't be in society. It's to help them get back into it.
Now we are focusing on getting our story out to the community so they understand what the needs are, and they're not just getting their information based on headlines in the paper when something traumatic or tragic happens within the child welfare system.
They're not unnormal. They're just like every other youth out there, and unfortunately a lot of the kids out in the public school system, I mean, they're going through these struggles and nobody knows it.
For people who would perhaps look at a headline and formulate an opinion or a judgment. It's frustrating that at the end of the day, my request of these people is so simple. But my request is to have empathy. My request is to look into your childhood and examine the things that made it good. What made your childhood good? Was there a good teacher that stuck around? Was there activities for you to engage in? Was it safe? Did you have opportunities to try new things? Did you get to travel? All of these are foundational parts of our childhood. And if anybody listening right now is thinking about those things and it was somehow a benefit to you, I want you to ask yourself this question. Doesn't every child deserve that? Because they do.